Why is Meta shutting down fact checkers? Is crowdsourced checking a better way of implementing content moderation? What role did fact checkers play during the COVID 19 pandemic? And how have fact checking communities responded to Zuckerberg's announcement? When are policy changes likely to be implemented? On January 7, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg said company will get rid of fact checkers and simplify content policies by removing restrictions on topics as it is out of touch with mainstream discourse. In a 5-minute video, he said the company will return to its roots as the fact checkers have been too politically biased and destroyed more trust than they created, especially in the US. How did Meta get into fact checking? After the 2016 US presidential election results were out, Meta, then known as Facebook, faced serious backlash for amplifying political posts that helped tilt the election in favor of US President elect Donald Trump. To build back its reputation, Facebook roped in content moderators globally and developed technology to filter harmful content. Meta started its independent fact checking program in partnership with International Fact Checking Unit (IFCN) and European Fact Checking Standards Network. Over time, Meta became one of the largest donors to IFCN. Meta worked with fact checkers to address misinformation on its platforms, Facebook and Instagram, while the fact checkers worked on finding misinformation and rating them based on the seriousness of content violation. Meta followed up with action and informed users of the measures it took. Beyond fact checking, partner organizations worked across Meta platforms to carry out research and rate content on qualitative scale: false, altered, partly false, missing context, satire, and true. Per IFCN's State of Fact Checkers in 2023 report, income from Meta's third-party fact-checking program and grants remains fact checkers' predominant revenue streams, and 68% of the fact-checking organizations have 10 or fewer employees, whereas only 6.6% employ 31 or more people. Why was there a need for fact checkers? Fact checkers play a vital role uh, in finding false and misleading content promoted on social media platforms by domestic accounts and at times by foreign regimes. They also played a crucial role during COVID-19 pandemic by correcting misinformation on social platforms. If rated content on Meta is false or altered, if distribution its distribution across Meta apps will be reduced. If key information is missing or the content is satirical, Meta might provide the needed facts. Content rated poorly by the fact checker may not be suggested to users, and repeat offenders could be hit with penalties such as restricted reach, being unable to monetize their content, or turn their content into a news page. What other steps were taken by Meta? Apart from relying on fact checkers, Meta set up an oversight board to adjudicate cases involving serious content policy violations. The board heard serious content violation cases and made binding decisions to uphold or overturn Meta's own actions. Gradually, Meta started to move away from news content in general to keep its platform free from disinformation prone content. The company said it will not proactively recommend content about politics or on recommendation surfaces across Instagram or Threads, noting that it wants these apps to be a great experience for all. Now that it is starting to change under Joel Kaplan, Meta's new chief of global affairs, Mr. Kaplan said civic content about elections and politics would return to the apps and that users can choose what they want to see. He expanded on Mr. Zuckerberg's video clip, noting that platform will also get rid of number of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender identity that are subject of frequent political discourse and debate. He said it's not right that things can be said on TV or the floor of Congress but not on our platforms. What is community nodes? Meta will be moving towards an X platform style content moderation system called community nodes. Under this model, instead of centralized authority taking action against misinformations, Users work together to add additional context that will appear under false or even blatantly illegal content. The feature itself goes beyond Elon Musk era Twitter. It was originally conceived as Birdwatch, where users could add context to posts they see that require more information. Initially launched in 2021, the feature gained prominence in March 2022 when misinformation on the Russia-Ukraine conflict was rife on the platform. While crowdsourced fact checking is seen as a better way of implementing content moderation, community notes can also reflect biased majority viewpoints regarding controversial subjects. The feature can also be slow, meaningful, hateful content may go to viral long before specific context is needed to clarify the post. Furthermore, under X current style of content moderation, even posts glorifying slavery or Nazism are allowed to remain online unchallenged. In an open letter to Mark Zuckerberg, IFCN said there is no reason community notes couldn't exist with the third party checking fact checking program. They are not mutually exclusive. A community notes model that works in a collaboration with professional fact checking would have strong potential as a new model for promoting accurate information, but Meta has decided to on a hands-off approach to content moderation by stopping its demotion of fact-checked content and removing the full-scale warnings over flagged posts. The company will focus on illegal content and high-severity violations while adjusting content filters to make it more challenging to take down flagged content, even though this means catching less bad stuff as per Mr. Zuckerberg. What is the significance of the policy? Mr. Zuckerberg's shift in stance comes at a time when the new Trump administration takes charge. The tech CEO dined with the president-elect at his Mar-a-Lago resort in November to repair a fraught relationship. Earlier, he publicly praised Mr. Trump's conduct after the former president survived an assassination attempt. In the video clip, Mr. Zuckerberg refers to the 2024 election as a cultural tipping point and committed to restoring free expression across the Meta platform. In essence, he was aligning his values with the new conservative government while making a clean break from the old one. While the plan to end the fact-checking program applies only to US, there are similar programs Meta is running in more than 100 countries. Some of these countries are highly vulnerable to misinformation that spurs political instability, election interference, mob violence, and even genocide. If Meta decides to stop the program worldwide, it is almost certain to result in real world harm in many places, the IFCN said in an open letter. Are lithium batteries on flight dangerous? Why has the airline pilot's body call attention to fire risk? What causes lithium ion batteries to catch fire? What are the fire safety equipment and protocols that need to be placed? And what happened when Hurricane Helene struck the US November last year? On January 2, the International Federation of Airline Pilots Association (IFA LPA) issued three position papers on fire risk due to the aircraft use of lithium-ion batteries in airport and aircraft setting. The papers are motivated by air operators' increased use of electric vehicles and lithium-ion batteries as well as batteries becoming more energy dense. The IFA LPA is a global non-profit representing the international community of professional pilots. After the Second World War, the UN established the International Civil Aviation Organization in 1947 to coordinate air transport and its principles worldwide. A year later, ICAO organized a conference in London where pilots could interact with its leaders. The IFA-LPA was born at this event with 13 pilots association. According to a source on the ICAO website, IFA-LPA encompasses 104 member associations representing 1 lakh professional pilots worldwide around 2013. Per the same source, the belief is that unique perspective of pilots operating in scheduled flying would be of significant benefit to the creation and adaptation of ICAO standards and recommended practices through which ICAO regulates international civil aviation. The IFA-LPA also provides inputs to the Civil International Air Transport Association, Airports Council International, and International Federation of Air Traffic Controllers Association. Almost every major industry in the world is mechanized to a significant degree, and the energy for these machines has traditionally been produced by burning fossil fuels. As climate mitigation has become more pressing, industries are under pressure to replace the thermal energy with principal cause of global energy warming with electrical energy. For example, EVs draw electric energy from a battery to drive an electric motor and supply kinetic energy to the wheels. EVs electric vehicles draw electric energy from the battery to drive an electric motor and supply kinetic energy to the wheels. In an internal combustion engine, the heat released energy released by the burning fossil fuel moves pistons whose motion is converted to rotary motion of the wheels. Lithium ion batteries have emerged as a popular solution to storing electric energy because they are energy dense, rechargeable, and can be made in almost any shape, which is useful when there are space constraints as on board an aircraft. But lithium ion batteries have been known to catch fire when they are subject to certain physical stresses. The fire is a result of the stress creating a short circuit inside the battery, leaving it to keep producing electric current, heat, and oxygen. The battery's internal components can become corroded when the risk of catching fire increases. The short circuit can be a result of mechanical, electrical, or thermal abuse, which respectively deforms the internal structure, degrades its electric performance, and causes heat to accumulate. For example, after the Hurricane Helen struck in US in November 2024, 48 lithium-ion batteries reportedly caught fire. University of South Carolina mechanical engineer Huang said that result they may have been the result of EV batteries rarely being rated to be waterproof when they are sitting in salt water more than 30 minutes. Such situations are more likely to occur during flooding, which is becoming more common due to climate change and a poor urban planning. What do the IFA LPA papers say? The three position papers uh, are more general, while third one is more specific. Second paper is motivated by different kind of fires caused by lithium-ion batteries compared to internal combustion engine. As Mr. Zianu wrote, when a lithium-ion battery pack bursts into flames, it releases toxic fumes, burns violently, and is extremely hard to put out. Frequently, firefighters' only option is to let it burn out by itself. The position paper thus asks airports, rescue and firefighting services operators, and ground service providers to acquire and develop purpose-built fire safety equipment and protocols. Third paper extends these concerns to flight deck, an area colloquially called the cockpit in civilian aircraft, where the batteries may be present in components were required to operate the aircraft. It also calls attention to studies by US FAA and European uh, Aviation Safety Agency finding that existing fire kits couldn't respond adequately to fires of lithium-ion batteries with an energy rating of 100 watt or higher. First paper is concerned with the safe transport of lithium-ion batteries, especially UN regulations 3480 and 3481. Since the UN classifies these batteries as miscellaneously dangerous goods, the regulation specifies the packaging and labeling standards required to transport them by air. UN 3480 applies to lithium-ion batteries transported in bulk, and 3481 to lithium-ion batteries fits inside some equipment that is being transported in bulk. One difference between two regulations is that 3480 requires batteries to be charged to less than 30%, also known as state of charge 30%, whereas 3481 doesn't. Uh, Paper 1 contends that 3481 doesn't adopt this restriction because it assumes manufacturers would install safeguards in the equipment to prevent fire from one battery spreading to other. But as the energy density of battery and number of settings in which they are used is increasing, the size of equipment that uses them is shrinking. ILFPF's position is that SOC's 30% limit should be extended to 3481 as well. Is groundwater contamination high in India? What are the contaminants and what happens if nitrate presence is high in groundwater? An assessment of India's groundwater by the Central Groundwater Board found that several states are grappling with a serious problem of nitrate contamination. The most concerning finding was that the number of districts with excessive nitrate in groundwater rose from 359 in 2017 to 440 in 2023. This works out to nearly 56% of India's districts having excessive nitrate in groundwater, defined as having more than 45 milligram per liter of the 15,000 groundwater samples collected from across the country for testing. 19.8% samples had nitrates, nitrogenous compounds, above safe limits, though it must be said that this proportion has not substantially changed since 2017. In the 13,000 samples analyzed in 2017, for instance, 21.6% has excessive nitrate. There are two concerns with excess nitrate content. One is methoglobinemia, and reduced ability of red blood cells to carry oxygen. The bigger problem with excessive nitrates are environmental. Once the nitrates in the groundwater rise to the surface and become part of lakes and ponds, algal blooms throttle the health of aquatic ecosystems. Most common contaminant identified in groundwater is dissolved nitrogen in the form of nitrate in subsurface waters. Since nitrogen content of soil is generally quite low, farmers have to look for external source of nitrogen by using ammonium nitrate, calcium nitrate, urea, diammonium hydrogen phosphate, etc. Although nitrate is main form in which nitrogen occurs in groundwater, dissolved nitrogen also occurs in the form of ammonium, ammonia, nitrite, nitrogen, nitrous oxide, and organic nitrogen. Which places has serious contamination? Rajasthan, Karnataka, and Tamil Nadu reported to be highest proportion of tested groundwater blocks with nitrate exceeds permissible limits 49, 48, and 37% of the tested samples. Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and Gujarat have long-standing nitrate problem with relatively fairly constant. However, growing concerns are block in central and south India, which are reporting an increasing trend. Is nitrate only a chemical contaminant? Other major chemical contaminants affecting groundwater are arsenic, iron fluoride, and uranium. Just as 19.8% samples are tested groundwater has excess nitrate, 9% samples has fluoride levels above the limit. Fluoride concentration exceeding the permissible limit were major concerns in these areas. What was the state of groundwater in 2024? Along with the report of groundwater quality, organization also produced a report on quality of groundwater in various blocks, enumerating the uh, qual- enumerating the quantity of groundwater in various blocks. The CGWB estimates that on the whole, country's degree of groundwater extraction is 60.4%, or roughly the same it has been throughout the years since 2009. How a groundwater level measures? The CGWB relies on a network of 26,000 groundwater observation wells that require technicians to manually measure the state of groundwater in the region. Since 2023, however, 16 to 17,000 digital water recorders are connected to piezometers in the wells. Piezometers measure groundwater levels and transform the information digitally to a centralized location. In the next 3 years, CGWB aims to increase its network from existing 26,000 to about 40,000. Millions of diabetes, heart disease cases linked to sugary drinks. They call for a multi-pronged approach including public health campaigns, regulation of sugary drink advertising, and taxes on sugar-sweetened beverages. Some countries have taken steps in this direction. Mexico, which has one of the highest per capita rates of sugary drink consumption, has introduced a tax on beverages. Sugary beverages are rapidly digested, causing a spike in blood sugar levels with little nutritional value. Regular consumption over time leads to weight gain, insulin resistance, and host of metabolic issues tied to type 2 diabetes and heart disease. IIT Roorkee uses bacterial enzymes to degrade plasticizers. Once integrated into bacteria, the enzymes remain active for a longer time, and bacteria can be used continuously for degrading the plasticizers. putting the gene editing tool to use. Dr. D. Balasubramaniam. When you edit a letter or a document, you can make specific changes in the words and phrases to make meaning clear. Gene editing involves changing the sequence of DNA using specific enzymes which can cut DNA at precise location, thus permitting removal, addition, or replacement of genetic information within a gene. This process is akin to correcting a misspelled word in a sentence or replacing it with more appropriate word. In organisms, this modification directly alters the gene instructions in the DNA. In earlier days, if we wanted to modify a message in the DNA or desired function, it involved two enzymes, one to cut the DNA to us at a specific site, another to insert the desired genetic change. Such twin enzyme method work, they were laborious. This was when Dr. Jennifer Doudna of University of California uh, came up with double action gene modification method called CRISPR-Cas9. This is a mechanism that can edit the genome of humans, pathogens, and plants. CRISPR stands for clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats, and Cas9, which stands for CRISPR uh, associated protein 9. CRISPR associated protein 9 cuts DNA strands at specific location, creating a gap that can be filled with new DNA. Doudna and uh, Carpentier shared a Nobel Prize in 2012. However, Dr. Feng Zhang, who then at Southern California, published a paper wherein he showed genomic engineering using CRISPR-Cas9 system, but he was not included as a third scientist by the Nobel Committee. He then went ahead, obtained a patent, and moved to Boston, where he works, and then patented his own today by MIT Harvard University combined, called the Broad Institute, which uses CRISPR-Cas9 system for a variety of applications, such as mouse model for cancer, identifying genes that make cancer drugs ineffective, and modification of immune cells, plus training people in the technology. While the CRISPR-Cas9 patented technology has been used for the above-mentioned diagnostic and genetic uses, agricultural scientists, botanical researchers have been using this method to genome engineer plants. Next, insights into coevolution of lice eggs with early bird hosts. Tumor-secreted protein may be a key to treat brain tumor. Targeting a protein called endocan and its related signaling pathway could be a new approach for treating glioblastoma, an aggressive and lethal type of brain cancer. Endocan, which is produced by endothelial cells lining blood vessels in the tumor, that activates PDGFR, a receptor on glioblastoma cells that drives tumor growth and makes the cancer resistant to standard therapies such as radiation. Oldest known dinosaur in the northern hemisphere. Snake alert. How do monkeys recognize snakes so fast? A Japanese researcher found that monkeys' ability to rapidly detect snakes is because of the presence of snake scales, a visual cue. No more actions to curb derivatives trading on annual SEBI. Waaree Energies to acquire EGP India for 792 crore. Waaree Energies, a manufacturer of solar PV modules, said on Saturday that it has signed a definitive agreement to acquire 100% of NL Green Power India Limited from NL Green Power for 792 crore. This acquisition positions Waaree among the leading renewable energy independent power producers in the country and expand its project development pipeline, building on the recent successes, including a utility auction win in Madhya Pradesh. The acquisition will diversify revenue streams, enhance execution capabilities of wind projects, and expedite growth of Waaree's IPP business. India's economy to be a tad weaker in 2025, IMF MD Georgieva, Kristalina Georgieva. Ms. Georgieva said she expects the Indian economy to be a little weaker in 2025. However, she did not explain it any further. The World Economic Outlook Update Week will have more details about it. The US is doing quite a bit better than we expected before. The EU is somewhat stalling, and India is a little weaker. Brazil is facing somewhat higher inflation, she said. In China, the world's second largest economy, the IMF was seeing deflationary pressure and ongoing challenges with domestic demand. Low income countries, despite all efforts they are making, are in a position when any new shock can affect them quite negatively. What we expect in 2025 is to have quite a lot of uncertainty, especially in terms of economic policies. Not surprisingly, given the size and role of US economy, there is keen interest globally in the policy decisions of the incoming administration, in particular on tariffs, taxes, deregulation, and government efficiency. This uncertainty is particularly high around the path for trade policy going forward, adding to the headwinds facing the global economy, especially for the countries and regions that are more integrated in the global supply chains. BHAIL ONGC to collaborate for a new renewable energy. A national The state-owned entities will leverage the combined strength for collaboration in emerging areas with the clean energy ecosystem and contribute to the country's national green hydrogen mission, Bale said in a release. IOB to raise MCLR by 5 basis points for 3 tenures, 10 basis points for 1 tenure. Indian Overseas Bank will raise its MCLR rate by 5 basis points. NLC arm AD, APDCL to develop solar projects in Assam. NLC India Limited on Saturday, its renewable has entered into a joint venture with Assam Power Distribution Company Limited for developing 1000 megawatt solar power plant in Assam. Akasa's unique dilemma: too many pilots, too little flying. Back in power with few offense, Nicolas Maduro. Venezuela's strongman has been sworn in for the third term at a time when Latin American country is facing international isolation and economic woes. In 2019, when Nicolas Maduro was sworn in for the second time as president, nearly 40 countries refused to recognize his presidency, but 16 countries sent representatives, including Bolivia, Cuba, Nicaragua, and El Salvador. In 2025, however, two presidents, Cuba's Miguel Diaz-Canel and Nicaragua's Daniel Ortega, attended Maduro's inauguration. The opposition could access 83% of the tally sheets, from which 30,000 polling stations, which revealed Maduro's opponent Gunas polled 67% votes. The official figures were different, favoring Maduro with 51% of the vote. The first Donald Trump administration imposed sanctions prohibiting the Venezuela government from accessing US financial markets, a move that affected Venezuela's state-run oil company PDVSA. The US went on in 2019 to impose further and direct sanctions on PDVSA, preventing it from being paid for petroleum exports to the US, froze its US assets, and disallowed the supply of dilutants that aided the refining of Venezuela heavy crude. US imposed economic sanctions were compounded by the EU's own embargo on arms and material to be traded with Venezuela, imposed in 2017. Restrictions will still remain. The country has got respite when the US eased term sanctions, following an agreement signed between Mr. Maduro and representatives of opposition parties in 2023 in Barbados, with political prisoners being released. V. Narayanan, the cryogenic pioneer, is taking over ISRO when the agency is working on a series of high profile missions from Gaganyaan human spaceflight program to Chandrayaan 4. The first big news from Indian Space Organization in the new year seems to have an inbuilt element of surprise in it. On January 7, V. Narayanan, a rocket and spacecraft propulsion expert who heads ISRO's Liquid Propulsion System Center in Thiruvananthapuram, was named successor to S. Somnath. The face of ISRO since January 2022, Mr. Somnath is highly regarded, cutting a dynamic and impressive figure, especially with the younger ISRO hands. Insiders speak is that many within the organization were expecting his term to be expanded. Comparisons with his predecessor will be par for course when Mr. Narayanan, who joined the ISRO 40 years ago, eases into the top spot on January 14. The change of guard is happening at a critical moment for ISRO, now guided by the Space Vision for 47, On the one hand, series of high-profile missions in the works, the Gaganyaan human spaceflight program, Chandrayaan lunar mission, the development of Bharatiya Antariksh Space Station, India's own space station and landing on Indian moon by 2040 to name a few. On the other hand, India's space sector is in a state of flux with the Space Policy 2023 opening it up to private players. Ever since the first US made Nike Apache sounding rocket lifted off Thumba, Thiruvananthapuram in November 1963, the Indian space program has largely remained a jealously guarded government concern. To his credit, Mr. Narayanan is someone who knows the ins and outs of ISRO, having joined the space agency's Vikram Sarabhai Space Center in Thiruvananthapuram in 1984, where he worked on solid propulsion. He moved to the LPAC in 1989 to work on cryogenic propulsion and has remained there since, initially playing this part and in subsequent years taking the lead role. As LPSC director, Mr. Narayanan was leading the development of propulsion systems for the Gaganyaan program when he was named the next Secretary Department of Space and Chairman. In many ways, his is the quintessential hard-won success tale, kind that parents in post-independence India love to inspire their children with. Hailing from a humble background, teachers announcing Neil Armstrong's successful moon landing is part of childhood memories. He subsequently obtained M.Tech in cryogenic engineering in 1989 with first rank from IIT Kharagpur. He took PhD in aerospace engineering 2001. At the ISRO, he has contributed to major missions and projects, including Chandrayaan series and successful development of cryogenic upper stage for geosynchronous satellite vehicle. The LPSC website describes him as one of the few cryogenic members who have worked in this area from the beginning. One of the tried and tested hands of the space agency, Mr. Narayanan comes across as affable and polite. Within the ISRO community, he is viewed as hardworking and tenacious, as someone who gets things done. That his long career has largely been confined to LPSC is given as a disadvantage given the fast evolving multi speciality nature of present day space tech. To his advantage, Mr. Narayanan has a experience on his side in the changing competition driven global space ecosystem. ISRO has added responsibility of hand holding Indian space tech startups and driving industry participation. The island of interest. US President elect Donald Trump says he won't rule out the use of military force or coercion to annex or buy the whole world's largest island. On January 1, the King of Denmark unveiled a new coat of arms after more than 50 years. It features a polar bear and ram symbolizing Greenland and the Faroe Islands, respectively, more prominently than before. Amid the calls for independence in Greenland and US President elect Donald Trump's aggressive push to buy or annex the island, Royal House seems to be underscoring the Danish realm's unity. Greenland is the world's largest island with population of 57,000, is an autonomous territory controlled by Denmark. This effectively means that while it has parliament which deals with domestic affairs such as business, taxes, immigration and mining, most of its foreign monetary and military policy are dictated by Denmark. The Arctic island was colonized by the Danes in the 18th century and has been associated with Europe, though geographically it is a part of North American continent. Nothing the region's geopolitical significance in the US in 1946 World War. Denmark rejected the offer ever since. US aspirations. In the first term in office, Mr. Trump has floated the idea of buying Greenland. However, this time it seems the president elect is serious. For purposes of national security and freedom throughout the world, United States of America feels the ownership and control of Greenland is an absolute necessity. In December uh, Donald Trump said. Mr. Trump visited Greenland this year as private individual. Both Greenland and Danish prime ministers have shut down such threats and plans. The island is surrounded by Atlantic on one side and Arctic waters on the other. Due to climate change and global warming, glaciers and ice sheets are melting, leading to potential new shipping routes which can greatly enhance trade. Moreover, Russia and China have already agreed to developing new trade routes in the Arctic waters as relations with the West soar and tensions in West Asia loom large. Last year, both countries developed a subcommittee for cooperation on the North Sea route, which spanned 5,600 kilometers from Barents Sea near Scandinavia to Bering Sea Strait near Alaska. With the threat of Russia-China cooperation in the region, annexing Greenland could give US significant control over the area, letting it decide who gets to run and operate. Jeju Air, Jeju Air jet black boxes stopped recording before crash. The black boxes holding the flight data and cockpit voice recorder for the crash Jeju Air flight that left 179 people dead stopped recording 4 minutes before the disaster. South Korea's transport minister said plans are in place to investigate the cause of data lost during the investigation. Biden blasts shameful decision by Meta to scrap fact checking. Ukraine says it is questioning the two captured North Korean soldiers. Pakistan, China to develop further ties for CPEC 2.0 development. Pakistan and China vowed to deepen their annual all-weather strategic partnership, including work on high-quality development of the second phase of China-Pakistan Economic Partnership. The announcement was made at the fourth round of Pakistan-China bilateral political consultations in Beijing on Friday. Violence was mostly political in nature, Bangladesh police. In a report, police state that only 20 incidents had communal undertone, while 1,200 cases were politically motivated. At least 35 held and 61 complaints were found to be false. Los Angeles file expand as wind forecast pickup. Musk, former EU chief uh, Brenton spar over Germany. Elon Musk escalated a spat on Saturday with the former EU digital chief Thierry Breton describing him as the tyrant of Europe. China UK resumed talk on finance after 6 years. The two nations inked agreements on Saturday in areas such as finance worth $600 million over the next 5 years for US economy. China's Wang Yi visits Maldives, holds talks with President Muzizu. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi made a surprise visit to the Maldives, during which he held talks with President Mohammad Muzizu and discussed state of bilateral relations. This was the first major visit by Chinese official to Maldives after Muzizu visited China in January last year. During Muzizu's visit, the two countries elevated the bilateral ties to a comprehensive strategic cooperative partnership and signed some key agreements. In his meeting with Mr. Wang, Muzizu stated the importance of fast-tracking key infrastructure projects outlined in the Agreement of Memorandum of Understanding between the two countries. He emphasized the need to prioritize social housing and road development projects, which are among the most urgent requirements of the Maldivian people. Additionally, Mr. Muzizu highlighted his administration's focus on economic diversification, particularly in agriculture and fisheries, and requested China's support in advancing these crucial sectors. Mr. Muzizu said he was glad to see Chinese people becoming the largest source of tourists for the Maldives in the recent months. Mr. Wang said Muzizu's successful state visit to China was a highlight of China-Maldives relations. Monfils became the oldest single champion in ATP Tour history. Gail Monfils became the oldest singles champion in ATP Tour history when the 38-year-old Frenchman swept victory in the final of the Auckland Classic. Kessler upset Martin to clinch Hobart WTA crown. Auger Aliassime and Key emerged triumphant in Adelaide. Felix Auger Aliassime and Madison Keys, Adelaide Australian Open. Tufan's edge past Fighting Surma club. Shami returns to India's squad. Aksar is Suryakan's deputy. Fielding in focus as women in blue look to seal the deal. Cautiously optimistic beginning to women's HIL. Big guns target glory as action begins at Melbourne Park. Punjab men's set-up title clash with holder Tamil Nadu. Mohammedan pulls off stunting win over Bengaluru. Padikkal slams 100 as Karnataka edges Baroda. Jinsi century helps Team B get the better of Team D. A Navy aircraft flies fierce as it performs flypast. Two naval skydivers collide midair before safely landing in sea during rehearsal of operational demonstration. Indian Navy personnel perform a continuity drill during the Eastern Naval Command's operation demonstration in Vishakhapatnam. At a display in Vishakhapatnam, Indian Navy's Eastern Command demonstrates its operational excellence, resilience, and technological prowess. Eastern Naval Command of the Indian Navy has an operational demonstration in Vishakhapatnam, showcasing a breathtaking display of maritime prowess and precision. So, this was it. Thank you. See you in the next one.